So to be an alcoholic or a drug addict is to be somebody with an allergy, because every time I ingest drugs or alcohol, I respond differently than everybody else. I am unique in that regard. So you could say that I have an allergy. Now, the simple solution here, just as it would be with a person with a peanut allergy, is to accept that I have it and to live my life in a way that guarantees I never come into contact with the one substance among so many millions of things that we can put in our body. I can't put in this one thing. So that way I never have the allergic reaction. Now, in the case of somebody with the peanut allergy, when they ingest peanuts, that reaction itself has a name, right? We can call it anaphylactic shock, if I pronounce that correctly. We could call it hives, or we can call it a fever, right? These are names for the reactions. Now, in the case of an alcoholic, in the case of a drug addict, that reaction, the allergic reaction itself, has a name. And I like to label it as the P.O.C, right? The P.O.C stands for the Phenomenon of Craving, right? So there's one word in the Phenomenon of Craving that everybody understands what it means right off rip, and that's the word craving. Everybody knows what a craving is. Like when you lay in your bed late at night, you may have a craving for a bowl of cereal. I love having a bowl of cereal before bed, and sometimes when I lay down and I turn on YouTube and I start watching stuff, that creeping feeling of, man, I would love some sugar in my bloodstream, I would love some milkiness, it would feel good. It's a hankering. It's something jabbing at the back of my neck. Hey man, go get a bowl of cereal, right? That's called a craving. All right. Now, when we put a freakier, more mysterious word in front of the word craving, we use phenomenon or phenomena, right? This is an old word. This is potentially a scientific word. This might be a spiritual word, but this is a word that we certainly don't use unless we're talking about a supervolcano or a strange event of weather or weird lights in the sky or something that happens in space that we don't fully understand. We would call this a natural phenomenon or phenomena, right? So this is the term that we use to describe the craving. When an alcoholic or a drug addict ingests his substance that he is allergic to, he begins something called the phenomenon of craving. It is a craving that is so powerful and so strong and so unlike anything else another human being may experience that we put the word phenomenon in front of it. A natural phenomenon of craving. The craving is so strong that it is rarely seen in nature. So I like to explain that the alcoholic or a drug addict, with no disrespect being meant here, is a freak of nature. To be an addict or an alcoholic, to ingest drugs and alcohol, causes this reaction, this allergic reaction called the phenomenon of craving, which makes me a freak of nature. The craving is so strong. It is an idea and a mode that causes me to use more of the substance or use more of a substance so bad that you could call me a freak of nature, because I will act in ways that is not seen. I will act and do things and say things or not do things that other people would never do. It just makes no sense. It's full-blown insanity, right? I've met many fathers in recovery. I've met many fathers in treatment centers. I've met many fathers in jail. I've met many mothers in treatment centers. I've seen mothers cry and lose their children. I've seen mothers that were told they could keep their children. All they had to do was clean up, and they couldn't do it. There is no instinct stronger than a mother's love for their child. There just isn't one. And I have seen the phenomenon of craving overpower the maternal instinct. I've seen it. It is stronger than love for a child. It is stronger than your desire for money. It's stronger than your desire to eat food. That's why we see a lot of really emaciated, skinny drug addicts and alcoholics. It overpowers any other desire for anything, which is why you get all of the trademark red flags of drug and alcohol abuse, which is jails and institutions, death, emaciation, criminal charges, robberies, petty thefts. You get people that sell their bodies out. You get people that commit atrocious acts, people doing things out of desperation. You get people that get comfortable sleeping on the street, people that get comfortable sleeping in abandoned houses and abandoned buildings. You get all sorts of true insanity. And you can absolutely bet that these people do not want to do these things any more than you don't want them to do these things. But they are doing these things because they are inside of an allergic reaction that they do not have control over. When you look at a man with a peanut allergy, they take in the peanuts, they go into shock, they turn red, their throat closes up on them, they begin to have fevers, they can't breathe, they can't speak. And you look at him and you go, you're choosing this. Stop having that reaction. You're choosing to be this way. That would be ridiculous. And we would never do that. But we do it to drug addicts and we do it to alcoholics every day. We consider drug and alcohol abuse and addiction to be a choice, a moral choice. And this is a very ignorant viewpoint because all the addicts I know, they hate being addicts just as much as you hate it for them. When I ingest drugs and alcohol, at some point, I end up in the phenomenon of craving. I will crave it so strong and so hard that I will burn my life to the ground, end up dead or in jail or in treatment or in a hospital, or the worst of all, there are fates worse than death, and that is living every day consumed by the need and the compulsion to acquire and do more drugs and alcohol. That ends up being your life. And there is no curing that. Now, alcoholics love and addicts love to try again. They love to potentially, maybe I can do it this time and it won't happen to me. Maybe I won't end up in the phenomenon of craving this time. Maybe if I do it like this, maybe if I do it like that, I can successfully use these drugs or successfully drink, and I will not end up in the phenomenon of craving, which will make me not an alcoholic, which will make me like everybody else. Now, a lot of people chase this delusion to death or into insanity, and I have done it myself. At some point, the phenomenon of craving will always develop. Once it's happened to you once, it will continue to happen every single other time that you experiment with a relapse. Now, the tricky part is it may not happen right away. I may be able to go out for a drink tonight and maybe come back home and successfully fall asleep, wake up the next morning, have coffee, go into work, get my paycheck, pay a bill. I may be cool for a couple weeks. I may be cool for a couple of months. I may be cool for a year. And I may say to myself, I have control over my drinking. I have control over my drug use. I think I made too big of a deal of this problem. I think I outgrew it. I don't think I am the way that I used to be. I think I'm cured. That's a really dangerous place to be in, because anytime I found myself just talking that I'm cured type of stuff, usually the next day I start to show signs of being dominated by the idea that I have to continue to use, dominated by this compulsion, this craving, this need that's stronger in my brain than food, water, reproduction, love, acquisition of resources, money, jobs, all of it. The need to use more is eventually going to become the strongest thing. It's like a delay. It's like a hand grenade. You may pull the plug on the thing. You may take that first drink, and at some point it will eventually blow up, but it always will. You always will end up in that phenomenon of craving. If it has happened to you once, it will always happen to you every other time. And there is no curing it. If I ingest drugs and alcohol tonight, I promise you, within 2 weeks, probably, within 6 months, within a year, I will be full-blown in the phenomenon of craving, and it will consume my life, even though I don't want to do it. That is the worst part. is doing things against my own will. Being two people, having the mind of a normal, sane, rational, responsible human being, and doing all of the actions against it. Living an insane lifestyle despite how much I hate it, how much it scares me, how much I don't want it for myself. Even though I have this overwhelming desire, I don't want to do this anymore, I still do it. This is known as the phenomenon of craving, and it's not normal. It only happens to a small group of people, and these people are known as drug addicts or alcoholics. These people are suffering from the disease of alcoholism. If there is a person who can successfully drink and use drugs and stop when they want to, they are not a true alcoholic or drug addict. If they can stop when they want to stop, even if it's hard, even if it messes them up a little bit, if they fall in love or get married or have a child or they get a disease or a doctor tells them, hey, you really need to stop. And these people say, all right, I'm going to stop. And they actually do. They're not like me. They are not true alcoholics. And good for them. I don't want it for them. I don't want it for anybody. But the true alcoholic cannot stop drinking or using drugs on his own willpower because he will be in the phenomenon of craving, which essentially means once I start, I cannot stop.